Hi guys, and welcome back here to the Dev Realm, and today we carry on our series. And in the last episode, what we did here is that we have set up our widget. We have a callback that triggers these little widgets, as you can see that. And in the video of today, we're gonna be doing the camera setup so we can start to place our logic in our game. So one thing here I want to do is just want to comment this and make sure that we leave here toggle the point widget. I'm just gonna put it like so I know what it means. And let's set up the camera here. So what I'm gonna do here is we're gonna just do the logic to actually move the camera, is move a little bit far from the player, so we can actually see where we're placing that, and maybe you can even start to play with line traces. But let's start the camera rotation thing. So in here, if you guys remember, we have this logic in here that changes we open up here our widget, right? So it does that, triggers this. Today, what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna create another event graph, and we're gonna call this the player camera events. Let's do this. Yeah, let's call player camera events, just so I know everything in this module is related to the player. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna right click here, and we're gonna create a custom event, and we're gonna call this event API set camera mode building system mode, or building system. I think that's fine. I know it's a longer name, but I think we know what it does. And what we're gonna do here is that, if you remember, we have our controller reference, and from the controller reference here we can get the palm control palm here, which is our player. And then from the player, remember that we have created that interface called return character camera boom. Actually, I'm just gonna rename this to return camera, and we're gonna compile and save. Let's see if it's not gonna break anything. Let's have a look on the third person character here. Yeah, name is fine, everything is good. Nice. So what we're gonna do here on the BPC camera controller, let's just do a printing here, and let's make sure that we have the player name coming back. So what I'm gonna do here is, when I start the building card mode, I want to call that camera. I want to change the camera location. I want to make sure the camera goes to a place where we can place parts. So let's call the API set camera to building mode. Let's check what's going to happen here. Yeah, so we have the third person character there. Really cool. Nice. So what we can do here is that we can start to do a couple of informations in that. So the next thing that we want to do then is that we want to call that interface. So I return camera, and this is going to return two things. So let's print here. Actually, let's see if this works. So set location, word location. And yeah, let's put this to 0. So this should mess up my camera, which it did. You see? So we have access to the camera. It's very messy, but it works. Nice. So now we can actually have the camera controls in the camera boom here. Then we can do it. So let's move the camera now. So idea here is that we're gonna get the camera, and we're gonna move it to this location, or even better, we could just move the camera as well to that location, and in that way the camera is always facing straight. So let's do that using a timeline, right? So to do this like in a smooth way, or the nicer way possible, what we can do here is that we're gonna create a timeline. Actually, we need to right click in that create timeline. Let's see if we can do it here. Yeah, I can't create a timeline on this one, but don't worry, because the reason why you can create a timeline here is because it's inside a component, and I have forgot about that. So what I'm gonna do here is that I am gonna switch back to my player controller, and I'm gonna do that logic on my player controller here. So let's get my game mode, open up here the modular controller. There we go, we have our controller. So let's create here another graph, and this graph here is going to be the player camera, right? And what we're going to do here, since we start to build that logic, what we can do is in the BPC modular car, we can just copy this, paste it in there, and we're gonna copy this API set camera mode here as well. I'm just gonna delete these actually from the BPC modular car. I'm gonna compile and save here. And now what we're gonna do here is we're just gonna paste that. We're gonna actually create a custom event here. I'm gonna plug this here. And nice. So the controller palm here is self, which is nice. And here we have access to the camera. Now we have a problem. We just need to be able to access this from the player controller reference here. So we need to be able to trigger that somehow. And the way we can do that is using interface. Remember that we have created two interfaces in here. One is the BPI character, one is the BPI modular car, whatever. So we're gonna copy this name. We're gonna go to our player controller. I'm gonna go here to class settings. And where we have interfaces, I'm going to just paste that name here. I'm going to integrate that. And we have to create now another interface here. The interface that we're going to do here is that we're going to call trigger player camera mode or something. Let's call a very generic name here. So let's go here, trigger player camera mode. And what we can do here is we're going to create an input, and we're going to pass a variable saying if you are trying to reverse the action. So is reverse. Are we trying to reverse this action or not? Right. So now that we have this, we have the interface implemented in there, as you can see here. So the BPI modular car interface is implemented in here. Now we can trigger that interface from the modular car here. So let's get a controller. And now what we can do is I trigger the camera, the player camera mode. And this is our interface. And let's test if this is working here. So from here, we're gonna go to this interface, and we're gonna call trigger camera mode. So we're gonna add the event here. And this, we can now call API set camera to building system, right? So we're gonna call API set camera mode building system. Okay, and now I'm just gonna pass a parameter in here because we do have a parameter called is reverse. Plug it in that, and there we go. Now let's check what's gonna happen here. Let's check if we have the camera access again. Let's compile and save. Let's see if that's gonna work. Yeah, we do have the follow camera there. So now let's change the camera. So the reason, guys, why I did this is just because I can't use timeline events in Blueprint components. So I have to use these in the controller, which makes sense. So I'm gonna right click here, and I'm gonna create a timeline, add timeline, and let's call this timeline here. So we're gonna use that timeline to add this stuff. All right, guys. So yeah, after you add the timeline, so let's call this camera move or something like that. Nice. So we're gonna add here 1 second, so it's gonna take 1 second to take the action. Let's now double click on this and let's add a new track. It's gonna be a float track, and we're gonna call this track move camera, and let's add 2 keys here. So 1 key, another key. So let's set up the max time for 1 second. Let's set this to 0, 0, and this is gonna be 1, 1. Right, compile and save. Now we can close that. Let's go back here to our player camera, and what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna press play, and we wanna somehow dynamically change that camera location. So we have something here called a lerp, I think it's lerp vector, and lerp vector is really cool. So basically it's the current position, the position that we want that to arrive, and the alpha is between 0 and 1, how long it's gonna take for that transition to do. So I think it's easy to show you what I mean here in game. So I'm just gonna put here the move camera here in the alpha, and here's gonna ask, okay, A is my camera current location. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try to move the camera first. I'm gonna see if I can move the camera first, because I know that when I move the camera, boom, it gets weird a little bit. So let's see if we can do the camera first here. So the camera here is 0, 0, 0, and what we want to do is something like that. So it's gonna be on the Y location, it's gonna be 60. So let's do that. Fine, save. So let's get here, get word location, plug it in here, and the next one that we want to do is that we're gonna set word location, which is gonna be here once it's updated. And what we're gonna do is like 40 or 50. Let's try 50 in the Y position. Let's see what is gonna happen. Yeah, I think that wasn't really good. The reason why is because we need to get relative location and another word location, because the word location is not yet attached to the camera. So then what we do here is the set relative location, and I think that should work in a better way. Compile and save. Let's check. You see, the camera now is on my shoulder, so I can move the camera. It doesn't look weird and looks really cool actually. So we can adjust this value to something crazy, maybe something like, I don't know, 80. Let's check if this is too much. Yeah, sounds good. I think if you're trying to build, what I'm gonna do here as well is let's try 50, the Z-axis. Yeah, so get this, you know, like imagine if you have the car on the stable, you probably be like placing parts and building things and jumping around and doing all sorts of stuff. Alright guys, so I think that's everything for this lesson, but let's do one more thing here as well. We just gonna do the reverse logic in here. And we're gonna do a branch for the reverse logic. We're gonna plug this reverse in here, and what we're gonna do is the same thing but the other way around, right? Let me just do something like this so it gets easy to follow. So like that, camera location. So if we are reversing, we're gonna copy and paste, and we're gonna plug this here. All the values are going to be set to 0 as it was before, and we're going to set the relative location here to that, and that's it. So if it's reversed, and we always want to make sure that you always play from start, yeah? Always play from start, and we should be everything good. So we're going to press place. Yeah. So I think what happened here is the reverse. Let me double check how we are passing that information. Let me check if it's the other way around that I have to do this. Yes, okay. So I'm just gonna untick this. I'm just gonna go back here to my modular character here. and I just align that. And you see where it says the condition. I'm just gonna grab this and say not boolean, and I'm gonna plug this here. I'm gonna compile and save. I'm gonna press place and then place. And the way we can test that really easy is just that we can do something like this, just to test if this thing is actually working. We're gonna go back here to the, where do we open the widget? Here. So when we close the widget, you want to make sure it goes to reverse, just for testing, right? So do that, close the widget. That didn't work. Let's check if this is actually being triggered here. Okay. Let's check why then is not working on the player controller. Let's just do a quick debug. So if it comes that place, next one it goes that. Right. Now if I press V, it goes back to the, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about one thing here really important. Is that we have to click and set up the alpha here, otherwise the thing won't move. So if I press play, you see? The camera is very smooth right now. There's a couple of bugs that we have to fix at that, but I think everything is looking good. So in the next lesson, what we're going to do here is that when we right click, we're going to make sure that everything goes back to normal. When you close this UI, everything goes back to normal, and just do those fine tunes before you can actually start with the line trace. So once again guys, thank you very much for watching, and I see you in the next lesson.